Okay, Jitish, great to have you on the show. Thanks so much for joining us. Now, in 1997, you debuted in Mumbai. You were 23 years old then, right? Right. Now, how has your creativity changed? What are you interested now, which back then, in 97, you said, you know what, I'm not interested in this. How do you evolve as an artist?
Well, I think the core themes still continue to sort of be similar some ways. I mean, but I think the possibilities are much more. The scale and technologically what one can achieve has changed tremendously in the last 15 years. The galleries are able to install works differently, and I think the whole landscape, the cultural landscape we work against, is completely transformed. So I think many things have changed.
And people's interest has matured in many ways.
And hugely. I mean, I think there's a huge difference in terms of what the circumference of the art world must have been in 1997 and now. It's just. Is
it that what is reflecting and what has become such a newsy subject in the last 7 days? And can't deny, and I'm sure beneath all the creativity, everybody sort of wants to put a price to it at some level. So all this auction stuff that's happened has been awesome for us.
I think one of the things that I think we all need to remember is that there's so much else that's happening in the institutional setup around the world, with the number of museum shows that happen with contemporary Indian art, and the huge impact it's had on the larger knowledge creation of what contemporary Indian art is on an international landscape. That's perhaps even more significant than the auction prices that kept getting reported in the media. I mean, it's just this sort of numerical analysis of the art world that sometimes takes on the headlines, and the fine print really is where the magic is. That there's huge transformation in the cultural landscape globally, where India is becoming a huge stakeholder in changing mindsets around art. So I think really what's happening is in the studios and in the big museums and institutions and conferences where India is actually making a huge change.
You're very well known as well for installation art. Now that's big in the United States, big in Europe. People there have large houses. They can house scooter rickshaws in their house. But installation art in India, is that perhaps a bit too modern, a bit too bold? Are Indians warming up to one of your skeleton-like Marutis or scooters?
Often when a piece of that kind gets acquired, it's a bit of a surprise. Basically, the adventure of making it is in actually not looking at the logistics of what it takes to make it or store it or ship it. Just go with that. But I think the possibilities of showing it in India itself has been like in the last 4 or 5 years. So I think that change in the way institutions look, the way galleries look, and are able to sort of engage with pieces like that itself is a huge transformation. I think yes. I mean,
people like what they see. They don't say, "Hey, what's this?"
No, I think the art world in India is now pretty mature. In the last 3 or 4 years, I think there's a huge.
But Jitish, the reason I go back to the money, and it's not to question creativity or even sort of suggest that that's not important at all, is the fact that the way the market has matured, it has a lot to do with the amount of money people are willing to pay for art as well. Right. In that sense, do you feel after this recession, which I'm sure everybody felt, and so did you, has the market come back in a real big way? And has the last week marked a sort of a hoisting of the flag on that story?
There's really no internal battle between a market and the art. I mean, the fact that the market can hijack the larger discussion around the ecosystem is the only issue. And the fact that there are these huge prices or whatever that get listed in newspapers definitely excites people. The point is, how can we transform that excitement to knowledge or into real interest? So
that's what makes Jitish Kallat also Jitish Kallat, right? Because when people read it in the headlines, they're like, okay, hang on, let me Google this person and know a little more about him. Oh my God, his art sold for that much.
But I guess that's my personal reservation, because that's what hijacks everything else. But I mean, I think it'd be interesting if we can transform that same enthusiasm into an enthusiasm for the art. And I think the media and all of us have to work together in
changing that. Actually, speaking about enthusiasm and sort of newsy subjects about art going on right now, Rabindranath Tagore's works, 12 of them, changing hands for £1.6 million, I guess that's 11 crore rupees. No interest from the government of India or from established museums here. The newspaper seems to suggest that's wrong, unpatriotic.
What's the artist's view?
Well, it's a huge question. I mean, there are books written on who owns antiquity or antiquities, as a bigger dialogue, where can encyclopedic museums around the world hold the Kohinoor or whatever. So that's a big dialogue. On a personal front, I feel both things. At one level, I mean, we can't necessarily think of the government having to chase and bring back old heritage wherever they find it, but it can also cultivate culture as we go along. I think there's a huge task at this moment. We have big museums that are just completely languishing with lack of interest in terms of how they are administered. There are miniature paintings that are actually going dry with the summer heat that are not air conditioned or climate controlled. So I guess if that one Rabindranath Tagore can look after 25 miniature paintings, we have a lot of homework to do back home rather than just fish around
That's like
auction
taking
houses.
it in good spirit, I guess. Okay, I just want to ask you, when you were growing up, being an artist was, sort of doodling on the paper, or was it something that you said that, hell, I have to just become an artist?
Well, basically, through years in school, one didn't know that you could actually be an artist. One didn't know that something like that existed. I mean, I could see people riding trucks, so that was evident to me. You can ride trucks, so you can do other things. But I think it's really when I joined, just before joining art school, that I saw the possibility that something as an artist exists. We
can't let you go without asking you, besides yourself, which are the other artists, if you were to sort of be, I'm sure you're a collector for sure, but even if you were to collect, let's say, 5 paintings today, which 5 painters you will definitely have in your collection?
Well, all my friends who are far too expensive for me.
No, if you had the money.
No, if you had the money, come on.
Well, yeah, that's nice, optimistic. But I mean, there's, all, I mean, the fine artists we have all around us, whether it's Atul or Subodh or Bharti, or, Bharti Kher or Anita Dubey, N.S. Harsha, Shilpa Gupta, I mean, there's a huge
These
list
are all great investments, right? With an eye on the future.
Well, I think they're all great artists, and I guess if we, all kinds of indexes and graphs are drawn these days to kind of create some sort of a value of how to evaluate art, and all these diagrams to me look like art pieces themselves that have nothing to do with the art.
People do that. They buy art, and that appreciates in value. Art, gold,
there's no argument there, but the point is that we use different kinds of, we use bar graphs and other kinds of graphs which look like art pieces in themselves, and they've got nothing to do with the art itself.
But the only good news and the takeaway from that is that even Jitish keeps a close watch on that and makes sure he's on the peak. Thanks very much for joining us, Jitish.
Pleasure. Thank you.